Okay, this is the June 15th meeting of the Architecture Advisory Committee of the City of Palm Springs. It is 5:37. Mr. Newell, could you please take roll call?
Certainly. Member Thompson?
Here.
Member Walsh?
Here.
Member Paline has been excused. Member McCoy?
Present.
Member Lockyer?
Present.
Member Dozy?
Present.
Vice Chair Rotman?
Present.
And Chair Jakeway.
Present.
6 members present.
May we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the agenda was published on Thursday, June 11th. The meeting has been published in accordance with law and policy.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This is technically a public meeting, and if anybody from the public wanted to make a comment not related to an item on the agenda, they were asked to contact the planning department. David, do we have any speakers?
No, Mr. Chair, there will be applicants that will be speaking when their items come up, but we have not had any requests to speak during public comment.
Okay, let's move to the minutes of the last meeting. I'm going to abstain because I was not at that meeting, so I won't be commenting or voting, but does anybody else on the commission have any revisions or comments regarding the minutes?
I will be abstaining as well.
Okay. If there's no changes, do we have a motion to accept?
Mr. Jakely, I do have a comment on the Las Palmas Medical Center.
Okay.
And I had made a recommendation or request about the 3/4 inch rock in lieu of the DG. And I would like to give the applicant the option to use like a 3/8 inch minus, that not all the rock has to be 3/4 inch, but some of it could be 3/8 versus just the sand type DG. Rather than lock them into 3/4 inch rock everywhere, there might be appropriate places for 3/8 inch minus decomposed granite in lieu of the 3/4 inch rock.
So are you saying, excuse me, that is a clarification, or did you want to change what was in the discussion?
A clarification.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Newell, can we have staff make that clarification, please?
Yeah, I found the sentence where we can just add the words "or as other alternative," or another alternative may be acceptable.
David, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, I am too. It's kind of garbled.
Okay, let me see if there's a setting in my computer I can adjust. Is this better?
So
How about now?
Yes,
Yeah.
much better. Thank you.
So what I just said was I found the sentence where Member Dozy commented on the 3/4 inch rock, and I'll just add or other alternative may be acceptable.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
With that revision, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Also move.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And abstention from myself and from John McCoy. So we will move on to the unfinished business. Is that correct, David? We've had all the comments that we get to this point.
That's correct. The only thing I just want to mention, Mr. Chair, is that, this is we're doing a new format today. Normally we have staff in the council chambers making the presentation, but instead we're doing it via Zoom, and it's being done internally here in the planning department. So we just ask that you bear with us as we work through these technological adjustments, and that like we've done it before, if committee members have comments or want to speak, they can just raise their hand so they can visually see you, or you can visually see them, or they can use the hand raise function, and we'll try and work together to make sure that all the committee members are able to make comments. The other thing that I want to mention is we are generally going to have all videos and microphones muted, videos off and microphones muted, with the exception of the committee and staff when it's staff who's presenting the project. Applicants may be able to turn their videos on once their item comes up. And that's it.
Okay, well, let's move on then. Unfinished business. PALO FIERRO Estates for minor architectural review and approval to convert 3,600 square feet of existing landscape and install landscape lighting. Do we have a staff report?
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon. The project you are about to review today is a landscape conversion project for the PALO FIERRO Estates condominium complex. As you may recall, the project was reviewed by the AAC on May 18th. Just to go over the project very quickly, this is a project for turf conversion, and the project area is approximately 3,600 square feet. As I mentioned, it was reviewed by the AAC, and on May 18th, the AAC denied application as submitted. The applicant applied for the turf buyback grant program sponsored by the Desert Water Agency, and the delivery funding deadline for this particular project is June 30th, 2020. And as you may recall, this is a project site. The site is located at the northwest corner of East Laverne Way and South Calle, Palo Fierro. The project area is limited to the existing landscaping area on the East Laverne Way frontage. And these are the images of the project site. The pre-existing turf and bougainvillea hedges have been removed, and the mounds at the center of the planting boulders. Images submitted by the applicant to show the existing wall and the trash bins stored in the motor court. That's in the motor court, which is adjacent to the project site. This is a plan that was previously reviewed by the AAC. And at the AAC meeting, the members brought up some concerns pertaining to the design. The first one is the lack of, one of the comments was that the trash bins that are stored in the motor court can be hidden, or its visibility can be reduced by incorporating the landscape. And then also the plan submitted for the review was inadequate in terms of the information presented. And then also the AAC requested that there will be some kind of correlationship between the architecture and the landscape. And then also the AAC pointed out that there are some general design concerns, which include the layering and clustering technique, plant diversity, and the scale. After the AAC meeting, the applicant submitted a revised landscape plan, which is shown right here. And the image on the top is a previous submission, and the one below is the revised plan. The major difference is the introduction of a crown of thorns, as you see in red, and the changes to the motor court entrance, driveway landscape treatment, and installation of bougainvillea hedges against the building wall. Staff did not observe any changes to the size of the borders that are proposed and the size and the scale of the plant materials. And staff also did not notice any drastic change to the clustering and grouping techniques and the visibility of the trash being stored in the motor court. So these are the items that are brought up by the AAC at the last meeting. Visibility of trash bins, staff did not see any changes to address this issue. And with regards to the inadequacy in the information presented on the landscape plan, the applicant included the detailed information such as existing walls, motor court, and the front entry landscape. And with regards to the coordination between the architecture and landscape, staff did not observe any change other than the installation of the bougainvillea hedges along the building elevation. And again, there was no layering, clustering technique change or plant diversity or the scale of materials. Staff finds that the revised plan generally meets the findings required for MAA approval. However, the proposed borders ranging from 12 inches to 18 inches are not compatible in the scale to the proposed cactus, and also the width of the street, which is East Laverne Way, and excessive spacing amongst plant groupings still observed. On the other hand, the staff noticed that the improvement has been done on the motor court driveway landscape treatment. And also staff finds that the trash visibility can be mitigated by implementing conditions of approval recommended by staff. And finally, the DWA funding deadline is approaching very fast. And considering all these things, staff recommend AAC approve the project subject to conditions of mentioned in the staff report. The applicant who represents HOA, Mr. Rod Stoke, is available today, and the staff is also available to answer any questions you may have. This concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Does the committee have any questions of the staff?
I have a question. Noriko, you know, this is part of the turf replacement program, and we go through and we review it, and they assume they get an approved plan. This is what's submitted to the Desert Water Agency, is that right? Or it's just they're providing the funding for the turf replacement, and you're basically approving the plan?
Yes, that is correct. The applicant can confirm exactly which plan was submitted to DWA for review. But if we approve this revised plan, that's what the city is going to be approving. And the funding should be provided based on the revised plan.
So in order for them to get their funding from the water agency, they need to have a stamp plan by the city saying it's been approved. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
That is my understanding.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Sure, I would.
Thank you. Give us your name, please.
It's Rod Stolk,
Okay.
and I'm on the board of directors for PALO FIERRO condos. So good evening, committee. Thanks for seeing us here. I just wanted to go through and do a quick review with you on the issues and concerns. You know, on the original plans, we took note of all the concerns that were originally there, and we went through and revised the plan. And I hope the changes that we made were adequate. There's apparently a few things were not there. We added plants. We did some diversity on plants. And I will say on the original plan, there were some missing bougainvilleas, and I'll explain that very quickly. It was my fault. We painted the entire complex, and we had removed all these bougainvilleas that were existing in order to paint the complex because they were very old, very mature, and they were literally stuck to the wall of the structures. So we're replacing those, and those are on the plans now. So, and our landscape architect did not know that we had removed those bougainvilleas. And also with the trash can, we had some concerns. We weren't really sure what to do. So we presented it to the staff. We said, hey, look, here's what's going on with the trash can situation. We provided the photographs. And of course, they provided some recommendations to mitigate that. And I will say we're very happy to implement those recommendations, you know, to mitigate being able to see the trash cans from the area where they are stored. I thought that we had proposed change the square footage. One of the issues was that the square footage was a little bit shy. I thought that we had made those modifications. We acknowledged that the last time, but we do acknowledge that the square footage, that was exactly what the turf replacement was, and I thought we had modified it to include the additional plantings that we were including in the job. And finally, I would say that, you know, we're happy to implement those recommendations. We like them. We definitely want to go through, increase the boulder size. We're happy to, extend the bougainvillea hedges as is recommended. And we're very open and pleased to go ahead and implement those changes. We don't have any issues or problems with those. Matter of fact, I appreciate the recommendation because we weren't exactly sure what we could do to kind of mitigate those that would fall into play and be approved by the committee.
Thank you. David, at this point, do we ask for public comment if there are anybody online?
You can ask for it, but like I said, I don't think there's been anyone who's specifically requested to speak. But,
Okay. Thank you. Let's move to questions then from the committee to the applicant.
I have a question.
Yes, Tom?
It's Dan. But you say that you're going to increase the boulder size, but I don't see that on the plan. So what was the idea of how large are rocks?
Yeah, and I thought we had done that. I thought that was actually incorporated into this plan. And we were actually going to, from what I understood with the landscape architect and the head of our landscape committee, we were going to make some pretty substantial increases in the boulder size, like double the bigger ones and maybe more. And we all agreed to that and determined that we would like to have some much larger boulders in the mix there.
Okay, thank you.
Robert?
Is your landscape architect available today?
He's not. Unfortunately, he's not available. He had previous commitments and couldn't make it. He briefed me as best he could this morning, and so I apologize.
Well, I'll ask the question, and I meant to ask it the last time you came before the
I'll
committee.
do my best. Yeah.
On the plan, it looks like all the planting is pretty consistently spaced out, and I'm just curious, since there's really no scale on the drawing, how much space actually is there between each plant? Like if you look at the Sirius, you've got a bunch of Sirius together, but they all look like they're X feet apart from each other. Do you know?
I thought that he had included the scale in the plants. I do know this. As far as the scale of the plants goes, my understanding was he put the scale of the plants in as what the water district notes those particular plants are at maturity. That's what my understanding was, that the water district has specifications for these plants at maturity, and I thought that's what he used for his scale.
Yeah, well, I was more asking about the spacing between the plants. Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, I wish I could comment on that one. That one I can't.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
John McCloy?
So I understand the layout and where you're going with that. With the, you've also added lighting for nighttime effect. What's your goal with the lighting plan?
Right. And I'm sorry, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
What's your goal with the lighting plan?
Oh, we want to have it illuminated at night so it's visible and looks good. At nighttime, we don't want it to be invisible. We want it to be seen. So the idea was just to have the landscape illuminated and visible at night.
Okay.
And
Is there any landscape lighting out there currently?
only on the trees. The only lights that exist right now are uplights on the palm trees and an uplight on the existing olive tree.
And how many of the palm trees are currently lit?
Both of there's all of the palms are currently lit.
Okay.
And we're replacing those with new lights too. Those lights will be replaced with updated lighting.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have a question, Rod.
Sure.
You got some suggestions from staff as to how to mitigate the trash can views that you were willing to do. Could you share those with us and let us know what that would be?
Sure. So my understanding is they wanted to just take the bougainvilleas that we're going to have along the structure and pull them over to, if you look at the photographs of the trash cans, and it's to pull them across and over and include them so that they would block the trash cans in the areas that they're visible in those corners.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, couple questions.
Yeah, Sean.
So I'm not quite tracking what's going on here. If you're doing something different with the bougainvillea, why are they not shown on the plan?
Well, that was just a suggestion that staff made just for this meeting. We didn't have them there originally, and staff had suggested, why don't you pull those bougainvilleas over to mitigate those trash cans?
They suggested that when?
Just with this revision.
So like, I'm still wondering why it's not on here then.
Oh no, well it was just as we submitted this. When I submitted our second plan, we asked the question. We said, hey, we're having an issue with wanting to mitigate and block those trash cans with landscape. Here's what we have. Here's our problem with it. And we just said, we're not sure exactly what to do. And so they came with a suggestion with this.
Another question on page 14, there's a letter here that's not dated and not signed. Can't tell who it's from.
Right.
That's confusing. Who created this letter and when was that created?
Let's take a look.
Page 14 of my document anyway.
Searching for it here still.
Yep. Odd that someone wrote a letter and didn't date it or sign it.
All right, let's see.
Your staff probably has this, and so does everyone on the committee here. So item 5.
Oh, you know what, gentlemen, I can answer that quick question. I'm sorry. That was a letter that came from us. That came from the board, and I noticed it's not dated. It was submitted in response to the last concerns of the initial committee meeting.
So a couple of items here with this, and I've got the street view in front of me here also. Item 5 says, it's talking about the bougainvillea, and says they were removed to paint the complex.
Correct.
So there's a fair amount of landscaping that looks like it was removed here, and there's a very low wall. I'm guessing it's 2 foot and change tall. There was blocking trash cans and blocking a parking area, but now the bougainvillea that was plus or minus 5 feet tall is being completely removed and being replaced with 1 gallon plants that when I look at them on the landscape plan here, the gopher plant, for example, that maybe that's a foot tall. So I don't see that, but in the beginning of this presentation, I felt like you were saying that we're doing various measures here that are going to meet some of the city's or the committee's suggestions. But when I read this letter and I look at the plan, I kind of don't see it. So the letter says Bougainvillea was removed, period. Not doing much about it. Item 6 says planting a tall hedge, a 6-foot long area along the outside of the wall would be out of context with the rest of the plan and would only conceal one side of the cans. Unfortunately, this is one of the comments that is not possible to address with landscape. We've included some photos for clarification. Then item 8, we request the plan to be approved at the current size of plants specified. Purchasing larger plants is a substantial increase in cost, and the HOA has limited financial resources. Yeah, but it felt like maybe you were saying something that's new information, newer than this document.
No, sure, Sean. I'll clarify this for you. So, as far as let's take the bougainvilleas first. Well, we did increase the amount of plants that were in the mix from the original plan, and they included, our landscape architect did include an additional plant type. So we tried to make a better mixture, and they did increase some plant, the amount of plants and an additional plant type, the amount of plants. And we actually thought, like I had referenced earlier, we agreed prior to this, we submitted this, that we would increase the size of the boulders and put larger boulders in the mix. So we definitely want to do that, and that was one of the suggestions, and that's what we always wanted to do after the last meeting. The bougainvilleas were existing, and you guys saw the photographs, and you're going, hey, look, on the plan, there was nothing there, but they were on the plan. And like I said, we had removed them, and our landscape architect was not aware of that. They were very tall, mature bougainvilleas. So we are going to put those back against the structure where they originally were. So the bougainvilleas there. Now on the trash cans, this is what I suggested. I said, man, I don't know. Basically, I admitted, I don't know what to do with these trash cans. I wasn't sure, we have our plans. Are we going to put some tall plants? I said, it doesn't go along with the plants that we wanted to put against that wall. But the suggestion of staff to just pull the bougainvilleas over and, keep them consistent, just wrap them around to that space. I'm good with that. That's a good suggestion, and I'm happy to do that, because that's just fine with us. And
okay. Hey, the second to last page and potentially the last page of this presentation, you say you're going to put the bougainvillea back, but I'm looking at the building, and you can't put back, if you can't afford larger plants, now you've got to go out and buy mature bougainvillea plants, because
we're gonna
well, let me finish. They've been obliterated from the total facade of this building. And then the new landscape plan doesn't really address anything that's going in front of this building. So before you answer, and then the block wall to block these trash cans, if you can't put bougainvillea there, then build a higher block wall. I think there's some ordinances from the planning department about multifamily residential properties, trash cans and things like that, and trying to mitigate the view of those from the street. So maybe trash cans have grown over time. I'm sure they have, and in height. Maybe the wall needs to go up if plants aren't able to do it. So I guess what I'm saying is, and I'll let you answer, but
I understand what you're saying, Sean. I do. Obviously on the boat, you can see, if you look at those photographs of the street, of that blank wall, that's all blank, that all used to be covered with mature bougainvilleas, and they were, oh my goodness, they were 6-7 feet tall. They were very, almost as tall as the structure itself. So, we want them to grow to maturity. We're not going to buy full-grown bougainvilleas, but the plan is to grow them to a good level so that they come up, to an acceptable level along that structure as we had it and cover the structure. One of the pictures shows a little bit of bougainvillea that is left that you can see if you look at the street
Yep.
users. Some bougainvillea that remains. That bougainvillea covers a driveway area, but you can see that's how tall it was along the whole structure. So of course we're going to let it grow and mature, and we're going to maintain it and keep it all consistent like it was.
Okay.
And we'll look into the issue of the adding block wall to the trash cans. We're open to that. I mean, we understand. I mean, it's an old complex. It's been there since 1965, I think. So we're very amenable to working with you guys to get those blocked and to mitigate and make it as less visible as possible.
Is that something you're agreeing to now?
Yeah, I mean, we'll agree to that. Sure. If that's what you guys dictate what you want to do. I just thought the idea of running bougainvillea across there just where the trash cans are, if you look at the pictures of the trash cans, to just go hide them there, it would be consistent with what's going in. That would be a good idea, I thought.
Except I go back to that page 14, that document that you said was from yourself or the HOA folks.
That's right.
But you guys are protesting, much more of that. Planting a tall hedge in a 6-foot-long area along the outside of the wall would be out of context with the rest of the plan.
Yeah, agreed. I did protest it at the time, but since I see the recommendation, I think it's a good recommendation, and we're very open to it. Sounds like a good idea.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any more questions there.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
It brought up a question for me. I guess I'm a little confused. Where is the bougainvillea going to go to hide?
Well, if you see the picture, I mean, we can always trim it down, but we wanted it to go, to a height of certainly like 6 feet tall. If you look at the bottom pictures, and you can see on the bottom right, there's some bougainvillea that's existing on a house there, right? And it's like 7 feet tall, right? 8 feet tall. It's like almost a roof height. But we wanted to make it look good. I don't know what the proper height would be. I'm open to suggestions, but I certainly thought 5 feet, 6 feet tall, on the bougainvillea, and trimmed well and nice and boxed would be appropriate. But I'm not sure. Whatever you guys think is appropriate.
My question isn't so much the height, but where is it going to go to hide the trash cans? Is it going along that whole small block wall?
Yeah, we pull it across. My envision would be that it would be pulled across. If you look at the pictures of the trash cans, we take it from the wall and just and like make an L, put an L across. We put the bougainvillea. You can see where it's gonna be across the wall on the top of the picture, and just sort of run it and put it right next to that wall, so it's consistent with the bougainvilleas, and just.
So it's going to go from the corner towards Laverne?
That's well, it'll be yes, from the edge and go along the wall, parallel to the wall, towards Laverne. Correct.
Okay, so would it also go onto the angled part towards the drive?
Well, it can't. That I wouldn't do. It would just be along the how would I describe it? The east side. That's east. You see the silver car there? That silver car is parked in an east-west direction. The tail lights are west. The headlights are east. So we just put it. I would envision it being just across that east section of the wall.
Well, I drove by the complex today and I actually looked at this, and I understand what you're saying. So from one direction it would hide the trash cans, but coming from the other way it would not.
That's right. And you see, if you look at the bottom, do you see the bottom left picture of the trash cans? It's driveway.
Right.
That's driveway area. So yeah. So that's one of the things we can mitigate the trash cans from the east and west view, but can't totally
I'm just thinking if you're willing to build a block wall, why can't we do some kind of a little enclosure just right there big enough for that trash can?
Sure, and that's something, yeah, that's something that we could do, and we'd have to do that. This space, we'd have to, I'm not sure how we would do that, gentlemen, but I'm open to doing it. This space is exclusive use space of the homeowners. It's not a common area, but we would figure it out. We could figure it out.
All right. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
I think that Dan's suggestion of instead of increasing the entire wall, but to maybe try to create an enclosure makes the most sense. I would also question staff that part of that wall is in the right of way, and then you've got setback issues for the height of the wall. So increasing the height of the entire wall probably isn't practical to comply with zoning requirements for wall heights and setbacks. So again, it makes me go back to the thought that creating a smaller enclosure right where the can sit is probably the most practical solution. Okay, thank you very much, Rod.
Thank you. Sure, you're welcome. No, thanks for your input.
Again, the committee now will discuss it and we'll give you some thoughts.
Sure thing.
Comments? We start with Tom Dosey. Anything? to add?
I've got a list of 5 items here that I think could help clarify the plan. Number 1 is on the Sirius cactus. They're calling for 15-gallon. Typically, these are called out either as single or multi-trunk. So I would propose that the Sirius cactus be 15-gallon multi-trunk with a minimum of height of 3 to 4 feet. Number 2, the desert spoon, the Dazzlerian, they call as 10-gallon. I'm not familiar with 10-gallon. If they're available, that's fine. Otherwise, I would recommend 15-gallon size. I don't see that the bougainvillea the size for the bougainvillea are called out, and I would recommend 15-gallon size for the bougainvillea. And then I would recommend that 2 to 3 Washingtonia palms be added to the base of the tall groupings, and they could be at a height of 6 to 10 feet so that we would some type of visual cue at eye level. Right now, those things are so tall. If you know, the photos are taken from across the street, but it make more of a cluster and cover up some of that bare trunk at the bottom. And number 5, that the boulders be 3 foot to 4 foot in size.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, Sean?
The spacing on the bougainvillea, Tom, you didn't mention anything about that, but to me that should be something like every 6 feet or a minimum of 6 along a certain wall there.
Correct. Yeah, they could be 6 to 8 feet spacing if they go with the larger side.
Okay.
John Walsh?
It's been sort of a confusing odyssey in spite of the size of the project here in terms of the submittals and the differences in them. I think that the general consensus of finding an architectural solution to the parking of the trash and the recycle bins is kind of a must do. This is sort of a long way home in terms of trying to get the landscaping to solve that problem. I think if there's a better position selected for them with some type of visual enclosure, that would certainly do it. I would concur with Tom Dorsey's list of just a more fleshed out specification in terms of sizes and spacing. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. John McCoy, any comments in addition?
Yes, I agree with what has been said, and I particularly agree with the thought of adding some more palm trees, shorter ones to the existing plums. The existing are beautiful, but they are very tall, and they don't add a lot to the pedestrian level view. With that said, the lighting on them is also difficult to reach a crown of that height. So if they add some new ones at a lower level, I would recommend put the lighting on those. The larger cluster on the eastern, near the corner of PALO FIERRO, that large, they've got enough massing at the top that you can probably get some light up there. Keep lighting on that to keep that historical feeling of what you've had. You've added 2 lights on the sign. You've got 2 lights now. I mean, you've got 1 now, you've turned it into 2 on the plan. I would not up the intensity at that location. The 1 is sufficient. So, and then you have specifically said you want to use smaller plants, and putting a light on every single plant, you're creating a lot of hot spots. So I find reduce the quantity of lights on the cactus, reduce the quantity of lights on the older palm trees, pick your accents, and focus the lighting to something that will be more dramatic and interesting for people who are passing by. At night, people who are coming are your owners. You've got some people out walking, but usually people are passing by at 40. I think 40 is the speed limit there. So, they're passing by at a quicker pace. So finding something that's a nice rhythm and a nice visual, rather than a lot of light just because there's a plant, would be far more interesting.
Thank you. Robert, anything to add?
Yeah. So, I've driven by this complex a couple of times, and, the exposed wall of the complex, I think, is actually a nice wall and could be a really nice backdrop to some nice landscaping. And I'm not a big fan of bougainvillea hedges personally. And at some point, I think you're going to have to tear them down to paint the building again. So you just kind of go through this cycle. The other comment I have is that I think the spacing, I'd like to see something a little more creative in terms of the spacing of the plant material. It seems very regular to me, and I'd like to see something a little bit more organic, and maybe cluster the boulders instead of sort of spreading them out equally, 2 feet apart or whatever. The same thing with all the plant material. It just seems too generic, and could be just by clustering them, some of the plants closer and then spacing out others out further, I think would make for a better composition.
So can I comment on that?
Sure, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think that those are really great ideas. And I'm in agreement. I don't think the bougainvillea is the optimal plant. I think I'm having a difficult time. It just feels like the devil we know here a little bit with the bougainvillea. I'd much rather see a more interesting plant palette, different heights of something else proposed there. But I don't feel like we're gonna get it. I sure would like to, but some yucca or something interesting. I like your ideas about spacing out the boulders, various sizes of the boulders, maybe clustering some things, broadening the plant palette. I don't know what to do here or what to ask for. I feel like we were settling for bougainvillea along the building because it looked better than just the way it's looking currently, particularly on these last 2 photos, as you can see on the last 2 pages of the document. So I'm confused on where to go with this now, because Rodman, I think that we're heading in another direction now, maybe another iteration of some more interesting material in lieu of bougainvillea, if that's the direction we want to go now. Noriko, any ideas on, or anyone else?
I'd like the idea of using the building as a backdrop. I think that's a great suggestion.
Dan, you have some comments?
Well, I just had a question. Down PALO FIERRO, don't they already have some bougainvillea, so it kind of ties it together with that side of the complex as well? mean, I'm not a fan of bougainvillea myself either, but isn't it keeping some consistency with what's already going in some of the other parts of the complex? I mean, it may look kind of funny if all of a sudden it changes, you know, you change the corner in the complex and everything becomes completely different.
I'm walking down that street on the street view now, and yes, there's some bougainvilleas along that street, kind of espaliered up along the masonry walls. But I don't know, I hate to keep chasing bad with bad, and so I think if there were improvements made along the west facing or south facing frontage, hopefully the idea would be that they follow suit and begin to do the same with replacing things along the east side, I think.
I see your point, but I guess I kind of feel like they're trying to make an improvement here, and we're kind of beating them up quite a bit. And this is the second time they've been before us, and we're still kind of beating them up. And that if we'd had those suggestions, we should have given it to them last time as well. But I think that some consistency is important as well. That's just my opinion.
I'm not so sure that I agree with that one, though. I know they got beat up the first time, but some of the comments, to me, could have fallen under the same category of what Brodman's suggesting now. And I think I am, that there's sort of a mundane plant palette here and kind of a mailed-in version of a landscape plan with the spacing and the way these drawings are proposed. There's no scale on here that's visible. I don't know. I feel like in some ways we are asking for what we asked for initially, which was some originality or some design here, and that this is kind of falling short of beautifying the project. So yeah, the bougainvillea is a new comment, keeping the building and getting rid of that bougainvillea and utilizing some other vignettes or something in the foreground of that.
You know, what if they use less bougainvillea and expose more of the blocked wall and do something different just in kind of in front of the block wall?
Yeah, I'm not, I wish some of this was a conversation with the landscape designer on this, because I think that if they felt a little bit of freedom to be able to eliminate the bougainvillea, if we gave them that option and create some other vignettes of some height and various height there along those walls, then they might, I mean, I'm just being optimistic, but I'm thinking they might jump on that.
Well, I think we aren't moving ahead very well, and I'd like to suggest reiterate a couple of the thoughts that I'm hearing and see if somebody can put this into a motion. I think we're suggesting that instead of a solid bougainvillea hedge along the southern face of the building, that the bougainvillea be broken into clusters or groups so that we see some of the plaster wall of the building. And where we have the plaster wall of the building shown, it can then be a backdrop for some of the cactus and other things that are going in. I think adding palm trees that are lower to those existing groups will take away the telephone pole look, where you actually see the palm tree and have something that we can light up, and then work with the spacing of the plants and boulders to make it all more organic and less regimented. And then the final comment would be that if an architectural solution can be created for the trash can enclosure, I think that solves the last issue that exists here. And unfortunately, with the DWA deadline looming, I really hope we can get a motion today that would give an approval with conditions, and those conditions would be reviewed by staff to make sure that they comply with the direction from the committee.
The only thing I would add to that is to increase the boulder sizes.
Right. Can somebody craft that into a motion?
Sorry, one quick question, Tom. Were you including adopting Tom Dosey's comments about plant material sizes?
Yes, yes.
Good.
Okay.
I think you crafted a motion, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Noriko, can that be a motion, please? And we'll look for a second.
Right.
Rewind that tape.
Yes, so let me see. So instead of the solid bougainvillea on the south elevation of the buildings, the such prime materials shall be grouped or to be clusters so that the plaster building elevation walls can be exposed as a background. And then also, I'm sorry, I missed the one right after it, but I got the spacing of prime materials and borders to be reorganized so that more organic appearance can be achieved. And they increased the border size to be minimum, I believe it was
3 to 4 feet.
yes, 3 to 4 feet in size. And the size of the prime materials to be at least 15 gallons for the night blooming series, the cactus, and the dessert, excuse me, I think it was a Mexican, it was a Mexican grass tree, and then also bougainvillea. Those are the 3 prime materials that I noted.
The other comment I made was that where the bougainvillea is eliminated against the south face, that would then be a backdrop for where the taller cacti would be planted. And as Tom mentioned, that in addition to the cactus being 15-gallon minimum, it would be multi-trunk, 3 to 4 feet tall.
Okay.
And to add that they should approach an architectural solution to the trash can enclosure.
And Tom, may I add something to that, or do I have to wait till we?
Sure.
Can we put a cap on the amount of bougainvillea they use on the front south elevation to maybe a maximum of 40% of the length of the building?
Yeah, I'd accept that as part of the motion.
Okay.
We have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item number 3 from Best Signs on behalf of Oasis Dispensary for a new monument sign for a cannabis dispensary located at 4810 East Camino, Paracela. We have a staff report, please.
One second.
This is from Alex.
Yes, can you see the slide?
Not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet. Okay. How about now?
No.
No. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, you know why? That's why. Share. And now I'm going to do this. How about now?
Here we go.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. The applicant, Oasis Dispensary, is requesting approval for a monument sign for a single-tenant building located at 4810 East Camino, Paracela, within the M1 zone. The applicant currently has one main sign, which will need to be removed prior to installation of the proposed monument sign. You can see on the western corner or side of that building elevation. They also had the word Oasis with 2 palm trees spelled out in the dirt adjacent to their building. And I believe that's been removed, but it would need to be removed prior to installation if it hasn't been already. The proposed monument sign will be located perpendicular to Camino Paracela and will be an illuminated double-faced monument sign with acrylic push-through cabinet. The monument sign will have a decorative element that will match the main building and will be painted either silver or gold. So I'm going to jump back one slide and you'll be able to see on the top picture the white kind of decorative wall. They're going to have that element on the one side of the monument sign to tie the 2 together. Per the engineering department, the monument sign will need to be located entirely outside of the public right-of-way, as a comment by Rick. The monument sign is 40 square feet, and staff has found that it does comply with the Palm Springs zoning code and standards within the code. And staff asks the Architectural Advisory Committee to recommend approval subject to the conditions, which would be to remove the main wall sign and the lettering on the dirt, if that still exists. The applicant is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. One clarification for myself. We are only reviewing the sign. We're not looking at landscaping, colors, or anything else. We're just looking at the monument sign. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, does the committee have any questions for staff? Is that John Walsh?
I wasn't clear. Alex, on the opposite side of what we are seeing in the view here, what is on the back end of the sign?
Oh, it's a double face, so it's actually the same.
Got it. Okay.
I have a question.
I can't see who it's from.
It's Tom Dosey.
Thank you.
Is the sign located, I'm looking at the picture here, and is the sign located right on the property line, or do they own both properties where the rock changes color?
It's going to be entirely on their property. It wasn't very clear. I was hoping the applicant could clarify that as well. But it's a little off to the side. So there's concrete where the parking is off Camino Paracela, and a little bit of dirt to the east of that, which is where it would be located. So if you can see you can still see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes, yes.
To the right of that last parking space is where they're going to locate the sign.
Okay, so it might be in the middle there, someplace of that.
Correct.
10 or 15. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you. The applicant is with us. Could you give us your name, please, and just a little description of the project?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is John Cross. I'm with the sign company Best Signs, and yeah, quite simply, the client or the owner would like to improve their visibility off of Gene Autry Trail. They do have a current sign that is on the building elevation facing south that obviously is very hard to see from Gene Autry. Not too many people can find them until they're actually in their parking lot. So they have willingly agreed to remove the sign that doesn't work for them to add a monument sign that you know, is simple but effective and feels, you know, it ties in with the building architecture.
Thank you. Does the committee have questions for the applicant?
Just for clarification, John, are you saying the sign mounted to the building will be removed?
Yes.
Yes,
The
sir.
letter? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yes, Robert.
So can you talk to me a little bit about the design of the sign and the priority placed on the three different elements?
Well, and can you name the three elements just so I make sure I'm addressing
the word
them?
oasis, the word dispensary, and then the word stab bar.
Sure. Okay, so you know, Oasis is obviously their name to differentiate from other dispensaries, but you know, they want to make it clear that's why it has most of the weight that they are a dispensary. And dab bar, that's a good question. I don't know what a dab bar is, to be honest with you. Sorry, I'm happy to say I don't. But yeah, I believe that's kind of like a separate area that once the whole COVID, you know, social distancing goes away, that they would gather on site. That's my only guess.
And did you provide the graphics, or did somebody give you the graphics?
No, we provided the graphics.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Oasis is their logo. You know, obviously that was given to us. Dispensary's font choice was, you know, obviously more for readability than anything else. And the dab bar was kind of to differentiate from the name Oasis Dispensary. So
Okay, thank you very much.
you got it.
Other questions from the committee?
Yes, along those same lines, for your internal components, when in the drawing, dispensary is clearly looks like it is brighter in intensity than Oasis or Dab Bar. In the internal components, is there more lighting behind the word dispensary than there is behind Oasis?
No, if there's any differentiation in light output from the rendering, it's purely just graphical issue. All the lighting would be evenly distributed for each of the letter sections, and they would all have the same illumination.
Okay, so your illumination is basically you're just lighting the entire inside of the box, and what comes out the letters is what comes out the letters.
I mean, the lighting is situated behind the lettering, so you know it doesn't waste you know any lighting product, but it is evenly dispersed behind the letters.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And the way I understand it, the lighting is only on the letters. It's not on the decorative element that mimics the concrete blocks.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I have questions. Was there any other design considered that maybe tied the block wall and the sign a little more cohesively together rather than having an aluminum piece stuck onto it that's silver when the block wall is white, the decorative block wall?
Yeah, you're talking about that like wall screen element?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had, you know, from their previous sign or their existing sign, I think they have it in gold, and they had mentioned they want to, you know, keep with that theme. However, I'm not opposed. I mean, I think it would actually look quite nice if it was white myself.
I like the way they're trying to incorporate part of the architecture from the building into the sign. I just don't know that this is working.
Yeah, I mean, if the white on white, you know, I think would look good because it's spaced off. It's going to create a nice shadow, so you'll definitely, you know, see the you know, the element, and I think it would look nice. And actually, you know, if the committee agrees, I would like to change that to white myself.
Okay, thank you.
I think the white on white really kind of duplicates the building better, where you've got the white block with the white framework around it. So it makes some sense to me.
Tom, another question.
Yeah. Robert?
What would the decorative screen block element is? It would be nice at night if it had a bit of a glow, because it gets completely lost at night. Is there a way that you could do that? I'm clearly not as bright as the other elements of the sign, but just something that gave it a little bit of, so you saw it a little bit at night?
Yeah, actually, I made a recommendation to the client to maybe have their landscaping person add just a real soft uplight so you can actually see the structure and the element, because we mostly work with internal lighting and don't really have the wealth of knowledge when it comes to landscape uplighting. You know, we that's kind of outside of our scope, but I think it would help see the element and also the structure of the sign itself.
Okay.
The committee, anybody else on the committee have questions?
I have a question for staff.
Okay, Tom?
Would they be exceeding the sign ordinance if they left the existing sign on the building?
Yes, they would. The sign ordinance states they can only have one main sign at this location.
My thoughts are that, can you go back to that elevation view of the building, please?
Like,
Yeah, it almost kind of becomes part of the architecture a little bit in this photo. Okay, thank you.
welcome.
It's interesting that the bougainvillea showing on the other drawings is non-existent here. John, thank you very much. The committee will discuss this and we'll give you an opinion.
Thank you for your time.
Committee members, comments, questions?
I have a question for Alex, just in terms of, personally, I'm having a little difficulty with the graphics on the sign, the font and the size of the word dispensary. And I'm wondering whether that's really in our purview or it's just the sign that we can review.
You know, I think it's in your purview. Flynn, would you have a better answer? I think that's something you're supposed to look at when
Okay.
analyzing these signs.
Yeah,
Okay,
Mr.
I just
Chair.
wanted to get clear. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could just step in. So you can look at the detail of the sign in terms of its composition, but in terms of the font type and the colors and certain things that are corporate protection, that's something that you cannot comment on or you cannot change.
Okay.
Any other committee questions, comments? Robert, are you finished or do you have some?
You can come back to me later.
I have a question for David or Alex, and that clarification includes the size of the font as well?
So the overall size of the sign is in conformance with the sign code. So the overall size is, as I said, you can't reduce it or make it smaller because it is in conformance with the sign code. You can look at the composition of the sign, but generally you cannot modify what is being proposed in terms of their corporate graphic.
So David, does that mean since there's 3 different kinds of font on there that we can't have more consistency?
You can if you can make that recommendation to the applicant, but again, if it's a corporate protected logo, then we can't modify it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we're talking about changing Oasis. I think it's the other elements that are the problem.
Right. The scale of the dispensary almost make that smaller and Oasis larger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I drove around the neighborhood and looked around, and this is an outlier in terms of being a lighted sign in the neighborhood. I suspect as more dispensaries are infilling in there, this will be a request that we see again and again. But I concur that the size of dispensary is overblown, and the brand, their name and dab bar, whatever that is that they're advertising, would be better focus for upping the scale on those and downplaying dispensary.
Yeah. And David, another question for you. Sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt you if you were.
No, that's fine.
So Tom Dozy raised an interesting question about the sign on the building, and I'm generally in agreement with him. Is it possible to allow them to keep that sign and then do this monument sign as well?
There may be a way to do it as an accessory sign, but they cannot have 2 main signs. So if it's smaller, there may be a way to have another sign on the building, but generally, as Alex, Ms. Perez stated, the city is limited to one, commercial businesses are generally limited to 1 main sign per frontage.
Yeah.
John McCoy, any questions or comments?
No, I made mine.
Okay, John Walsh, anything?
I thought, Tom Desi, you might have gone here, but when you look at the sign on the front of the existing building, it has an entirely different energy and a design ethos to it. It's almost sophisticated, and there you are in sort of an industrial neighborhood. The sign that is proposed seems to be a world of difference in terms of the fact that it's going to be a wash and light. You've got 3 different fonts going on, each one kind of trying to outdo the one next to it. I think that perhaps the saving grace is the fact that it has introduced the architectural element, the grill pattern. I think if it were done in a metallic, it would be kind of disaster, overly glitzy. But I think if it is white, it certainly would help. And then the issue is the size and the color and the dissonance between the 3, the Oasis dispensary and Dab Bar, that I think needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Sean, do you have any comments? Obviously
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion from somebody? I did it last time.
Well, let me say this. I'm not thrilled with this sign, and actually, I'd like to see another iteration. I'd like to see a better proportion. I'd like to see the font sizes adjusted and maybe the font types adjusted, and that the emphasis be Oasis and not dispensary. And as Member Walsh said, the difference between the sign on the building has a sophistication and this one lacks it. And so I'd like to see, even though it's in kind of an outlier area, I'd like to see some more better consistency with the original intent of the signage.
So is that a motion to continue this to a future meeting?
Okay.
That is a good idea.
Second, John?
I will second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have decided to bring this back to us at a future meeting with the comments that the committee has made.
Is it too late to make one thing we didn't discuss about making the graphic or the detail of that block wall white rather than silver?
I think, yeah, they caught it.
I think that was included, but if not, let's definitely include that in the comments.
Agreed.
Okay, let's move on to item number 4. Destination Ramon LLC for a pre-application review for the redevelopment of a pad site to include the demolition of an existing building for the construction of 2 quick service restaurants with drive-throughs located in the Walmart Shopping Center on East Ramon Road. And just before we get the staff report, is all we are doing today as a committee is making comments to the applicant in advance of their making their actual submittal for approval. So this is just where we're giving them some help with suggestions on what we would like to see when this comes in for the actual submittal. So could we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this request is by Destination Ramon. As you mentioned, is the shopping center that contains the Walmart. There's the former Office Depot building that will be demolished. There's a Del Taco and a Bank of America and PetSmart. So the large property that makes up the Destination Ramon site is in this overall view, which shows the commercial center of Gene Autry Trail, Ramon Road, the Lowe's, and the Home Depot. So it is a very auto-oriented retail commercial center. So what they're proposing to do is to demolish the Office Depot building, which is around 18,000 square feet, which is in this aerial photograph, and split the lot into 2 to allow 2 separate quick service restaurants with drive-throughs. One will be Starbucks and the other one will be Raising Cane's. The graphics that have been handed to the Architect Advisory Committee includes this drawing and then also a site plan. So in this drawing, you'll see the Raising Cane's is on the west side or the left, and the Starbucks is in the center of the slide. Raising Cane's is proposed to be 3,198 square feet, single-story building placed in the western edge. You'll see that it has a double drive-through that enters off of, when you come into the site, you come off of the internal streets of the shopping center and into both of these sites. Raising Cane will discuss their operations of the double drive-through and why that's needed. So in this iteration, it shows the 2 drive-through lanes, one that will go against the building, and then there's an outer lane that we'll describe how that operates in just a minute. So you'll see that the building is at the corner of Gene Autry and San Luis Rey Drive. And then the Starbucks is between the Raising Cane's and the Del Taco. The landscape plan, as you know, the site out there has been landscaped with mature trees that some will be removed and reused. The site is very visible on the corner, so there's enhanced landscaping around San Luis Rey and wraps around the building. They're providing shade trees within the parking lot to provide the shade tree requirement. What I want to show you in this picture, this slide, when the application first came in, and you don't have this in your packet, so this is new to see, they submitted an application with a double drive-through that merged into one lane. So I'll flip back so you can see. This is what, after staff had worked with them, they revised it to add the outer lane in this slide. And then this was the original submission. So when they submitted this to staff, we felt that it's a very prominent corner and needed an anchor, some sort of anchor to the 2 streets, major thoroughfares there. And the second iteration, they did move the building towards the street to anchor the corner, and then they added the second drive-through lane. Staff feels that this is a very auto-centric design. We think that it's an appropriate location for 2 drive-through restaurants. However, we want to soften it a little bit, and staff could support a 1 drive-through on the site. And Raising Cane's will discuss this in just a minute. So as I said, this exhibit shows the existing mature trees that are out there that will be removed. They're the ones with the X's on them, the circles. And then the landscape plan shows a variety of different types of plants that are currently in the site and will be used throughout the proposed development. So the Raising Cane's is horizontal elements. It's finished on all 4 sides. They have an outdoor seating area. This is their corporate design. We've asked them to take the signage off the building because signage will come back to the Planning Commission, or we'll evaluate it against the sign program. And if the signage does not cohere to the sign program, it will come back to the AEC and onto the Planning Commission for final review. So we're not really discussing about signage today, but I want to just say that we had them remove the signs. Other elements that staff is concerned about is the rear elevation, which faces the street, the corner. Staff wanted them to sort of make it look more like a front, or if possible, flip the building. And if they can't flip the building, then make this backside, which is the back of the house, more interesting. The height of the building is 19 feet, so it's within what the zoning code allows. I would like to mention that there are lights on the building that we've discussed with the applicant, and I think that they're willing to work with us. There are also lights that run up in the eaves that will splash light onto the building at night. In this north elevation is the rear elevation that I was discussing that would need to have, can we make that look more interesting? They've also added canopies over all the windows, especially the west-facing windows. We know it can get windy and very bright and sunny there. So they have a series of 3D renderings of what the building will look like, and I can go through these. This is the side that faces the street, the rear. So it's double doors, and the proposed dumpster will be off to the right of this photograph. Building materials, there's a red metal panel for a number 1, which is their element and their design element, and they'll talk about that in a minute. Brick, stucco, metal. And I included the internal floor plan so you could see how the internal workings of the restaurant work with the dining room, the outdoor patio seating, and then the kitchen and the back of house operations. Also a roof plan so you can see how the restaurant will vent food preparation, air conditioning, and so on. And then also the dumpster detail showing it's a CMU block. It's fully enclosed. It has a roof on it, and then doors that open for trash removal. Moving on to the Starbucks building. When the Starbucks first came in, they had a design that was all clad in the sort of wood, dark clay tiles that are shown here on the Starbucks. So they revised it to add more stucco elements and make it more interesting. So we'll flip through these slides, which you've had a chance to review. One element that needs to be discussed is both of these drive-throughs need a 4-foot tall wall to shield the parking and the cars. We don't have a detail of that, so that's one thing that we will not be discussing today, but they do need to provide that. And this is the side that does face Ramon Road that you'll be visible. But of course, in this photograph, there's not the screen wall. And this is the side that faces the parking lot and will be the entrance. And the Starbucks is 2,200 square feet, single story, with a maximum height of 20 feet. There's the materials, Starbucks green for colors, tans, the woodstone, cedar veneer, corrugated metal, and other concrete and stucco elements. They've also included a trash enclosure detail, which is similar to Raising Cane's, a little bit more simpler. And then to discuss some of the site photo areas. So the Office Depot will be removed. One concern that staff had was how to connect this bus stop, which is very busy, to the site. And they have provided a pedestrian connection that goes from the sidewalk into the development to provide access. Also, they provided access into the rest of the shopping center so you could park in the Walmart's lot and walk over to these properties. So just some photographs of what's currently there, the mature landscaping. So the drive-throughs would be pushed out almost to where these palm trees are now. Some more views of what's currently there. This is looking San Luis Rey towards Ramon Road. And then the parking lot lighting. So there is a photometric plan that was included in your packet, and they will be replacing the lights and adding a new lighting scheme, and we will evaluate the photometrics versus the outdoor lighting code. So I wanted to just say that this is a pre-application review, and there's a series of formal applications that will be submitted at a time when they're prepared to do that, such as a conditional use permit, a major architectural. So the AAC may want to take these individually, talk about them, the Starbucks in one discussion, and then the Raising Cane's in another, if you so choose to do that. So Chair, that ends my report, and the applications are available whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Glenn, one question. I want to touch on the very last thing you said. They appear to be very different buildings and materials and uses. Can they be submitted when it comes for the actual submittal individually so that each building and project could be reviewed on its individual merits so that what might hold back one doesn't hold back the other?
Well, the part of the review process is to split the lot. So it'll be a parcel map waiver, and that requires a certain process. The CUPs could be separated out. The architectural design could be separated out, but the element of actually splitting the lots would have to go. And I think the applicant, and they may want to address this if they would split them out or not, but they seem to want to go as a package.
Okay. Any questions of staff from committee members? No questions of staff. Do we have the applicant to give us a presentation?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Give me your name, please, and tell us who you are as far as developer, architect, what your position is.
Yes, thank you. My name is Stan Rothbard. I'm the owner and original developer of the shopping center, affectionately referred to as Destination Ramon, which is the Walmart anchored shopping center on Ramon Avenue at St. Louis Ray. We're pleased to present to this body our new proposal for Destination Ramon. It was over 15 years ago that we first appeared before an architectural committee at the city of Palm Springs when the project was first initiated. From that collaboration, we developed a project that still receives accolades for its design. Can you see me, by the way?
Yes.
No, I can't.
You're not missing anything, by the way. I wonder, should I adjust my screen? I'm not sure.
You're great, Stan.
Okay. We received accolades for its design, its architecture, and its landscaping. We look forward to continuing that cooperative effort. We are experiencing a dramatic shift in the retail sector. Customers are now not making the kind of in-store purchases that they used to, and they're making those purchases via the internet. As a result, we're seeing a severe downsizing of brick and mortar operations. That's what happened to Office Depot. It closed or is closing down numerous locations. They chose not to renew their lease. In fact, they moved out over a year ago. The building's been vacant. Their move has afforded us an opportunity. That opportunity is to bring in tenants that are better suited to draw customers into the center. Raising Cane and Starbucks are those types of tenants, and they are ideally suited to meet this objective. We have worked diligently to design a plan that possesses connectivity and buildings that are unique and harmonious. We hope that you do our work similarly. We've had the opportunity to review an earlier staff report and worked with our tenants and staff to navigate through those comments. And we made substantive changes as requested. Our landscape architect, Raising Cane and Starbucks are all here to answer questions and hear your comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions from the committee for the applicant?
And Chair, we do have two others to talk, if we could bring them in.
Do we have them give us a little presentation first? Let's do that. Raising Cane, is there somebody representing Raising Cane who can give us a little background?
Yes, Kristen Roberts, Property Development Manager, Product and Cashier for Raising Canes.
Not hearing you, Kristen.
I'm sorry, can
Okay.
you hear me?
Now we can hear you. We're fading in and out.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. Typically we have, a short PowerPoint slideshow to give to any board or commission that we're speaking with, just to kind of give a quick snapshot of who Raising Canes is and where we came from. I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but we started in 1996 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and our founder, Todd Graves, is still a very integral part of our community and our crew and everything we do. I will kind of reference a little bit of what we've all dealt with since March and the fluidity of our worlds. The first week that this all happened and everything went on lockdown, if you will, we've been having weekly all company calls, and that's everyone, coordinators and above and so forth, and just anyone that works in any of the offices and managers, The very first thing he said to a lot of us, because everyone was very worried, as many in the food service industry were, he said no crew member will be left behind. And he has held true to that. And we have not laid off any crew members that I'm aware of, but we've actually been doing very, very well. As I mentioned, Raising Cane started in Baton Rouge. We sell 4 things and we do it very well. One Love is our tag, and One Love is chicken fingers. We do chicken fingers, crinkle fries, coleslaw, and Texas toast. We have fresh squeezed lemonade and sweet tea. If you're a fan of either of those, I know it's fresh squeezed because I have squeezed the lemons. When I said my title, Property Development Manager, Fry Cook, and Cashier, that's true. Every one of us that works at Raising Cane's, all 20-something thousand, are all certified fry cooks and cashiers. Every year we go back. If we work in the offices, because Todd wants us to all be ready to lock the doors and go help at any restaurant at any time. Raising Cane's is very involved in every community we're a part of, and Palm Springs would be no different. We're very excited about being a part of the Palm Springs community. And before our crew even opens the doors, all crew members volunteer in the community of a community organization of the choice. Our marketing team comes out and really works through the community, and we raise a minimum of $1,000 to hand over on grand opening day to that community. So we're very involved and we become a part of the community. I know it's a little more than you probably wanted to know, but I did want to let you know who we are and what we stand for, and really appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you this evening for your consideration.
Thank you, Kristen. I think it might make sense for the committee to concentrate right now just on the Raising Cane portion of this project. And since we have Kristen with us now, let's see if there's any committee questions specifically for just this portion of the project.
One question. Have you considered maybe flipping the outdoor seating to the other side of the building just because that's where the mountainside is and where the view is, rather than looking back across to the parking lot at Starbucks?
Well, it was considered, and just given the site restraints and what we're working within, unfortunately, that's the back of the house, so to speak.
Kristen, we're losing your audio again. You're too far.
No, we've had some serious cell tower issues. I don't know if it's out there as well, but this whole area lost AT&T, everyone, you name it. So unfortunately, I apologize. Can you hear me okay?
You're doing fine now.
Okay, I just leaned closer to my laptop. Technology at its best, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Please do let me know. The way the site is currently laid out, that wouldn't be feasible given the location of the dumpster and the corral in the back. We would never put our customers back in that area, given the location of the back of the house, so to speak. But again, given the current layout.
Well, I wasn't talking about the back of the house. I was going from the east side to the west side.
I'm not quite certain where it can use.
Well, right now your drive-through goes on the west side on San Luis Rey.
Mm-hmm.
If the outdoor dining was more on that side of the building, they'd have a view of the mountain, versus on the other side, they have a view across the parking lot into Starbucks.
Correct, and that would be a consideration, but at this juncture, we would need to take that back to our design team to take a look at. We understand that view. It's absolutely beautiful. I've been there. So if that is something we're happy to take a look at that as well. But the way the site is laid out is how we've worked with staff and presented it at this time.
John Walsh.
Kristen, I think a real operational question for us is the double line. It sounds like your first application was for a single line. And I cannot jog my memory and think where I have seen that before. Is that your standard design rollout to have 2 drive-up service lines?
A great question. One of the things that we have started doing with all our sites, and we're actually even going back to sites that are currently in the same level of consideration, we're actually using that as an escape lane. It's not necessarily identified here, and that is our doing, but once the cars, and you've probably seen it, where the cars do the 2 lanes each order, and then merge into one, so the pickup is at the window. So that second lane is considered an escape lane in case someone does not want to wait, they need to go, get inside to take toddlers to, you know where, just anything like that. So that second lane would be used as an escape lane, as it's called in the industry.
So this wasn't a response to just figuring, aha, we're going to double our capacity or something?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. So this is, it seems like you're advancing a better solution in terms of the way the cars get in and out, and certainly can, as you say, escape if they have to.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. That was just an operational question.
Absolutely. Next, great question.
John McCoy, comments, questions?
None at this moment.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I've got a couple questions. Wondering why the buildings need to be this height, like 20 foot 9.5 for the Starbucks, and then the other was 19 and change, or are we just staying on Raising Cane for now?
Yeah, let's just talk Raising Cane.
Raising Canes.
As far as the height goes,
Yeah, that's right. The they seem quite a bit taller than maybe they need to be there.
actually, these are our standard elevations company-wide. I'm not sure that if it was the Office Depot, I'm not sure how high that is, but I do know we're substantially lower than that. A lot of these are architectural elements that make it that tall. And the screening, if you will, of any of our roof equipment is a lot of that element as well. We definitely don't want you to see the roof equipment.
Okay.
Okay. Who have I missed? Robert?
Well, yeah, just in response to a statement you just made, the elevations are, this is a standard for all of your restaurants throughout the country?
Well, actually, we are worldwide, and the elevations are based on the prototype itself. We have 4 different prototypes in the size of the location that we're going. We have a walk-up, drive-through only. We've got a larger one and a couple mid-range sizes. However, the elevations are standard. And I understand we're not talking of signage today. That's not under consideration, but the signage really also does bring another element to it, specific to our brand. But these are indeed our standard prototypical materials and colors and layout, our enhanced patio and so forth. Yes, sir.
And just a question, because brick is not really a common material you find in the desert, is that something you might consider changing for this location?
I have to take that back to the design team, but most definitely a discussion.
Okay. A question on the drive-through elevation, and maybe this was part of the signs that were removed. You'll see between the 2 windows, the drive-up, it looks like toward the rear of the elevation. There's a 3D image up, but there's a bar. It looks like a bar light that projects off the building. You're jumping around. This is the drive-through elevation. So I think it's, yeah, no, another elevation, Glenn, the other sheet. Yes. So between the 2 drive-through windows, you've got
the parallel, that sort of line that looks like lighting.
Yeah, is that a lighting fixture for signage or for
Yes,
the
sir.
drive aisle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then on the elevation above that, there's 4 X's up near in the parapet area. What is that?
The address, the building address, the building number.
That's the building number. I see.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right. I don't have any other questions at this point.
Kristen, John, you go ahead.
Yeah, I understand you were probably fairly set in the layout and the operations back of house area. Your trash area, just so that you understand the wind patterns here, your outdoor dining is downwind from the trash. So you'll want to make sure that that is, well, the enclosure is very solid, and you're not going to get a lot of aroma coming down for people to take their food outside to sit and dine. And I appreciate your comment of wanting to be part of the community and very engaging and donations made and all that. I think the comment about the brick is appropriate. It's not really something that there's much of in the area, so maybe trying to bring the building into a sense of community and maybe not being so rigid with all of your corporate levels of lighting and fixtures and pieces that are so standard might be greatly appreciated by the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was there anything specific, or more so just the brick that was mentioned and so forth? And maybe, I don't want to say soften it up for lack of a better, I could work with staff to get a better understanding of what might be.
Yeah, I think that, you mentioned when the brick was mentioned, you said you could take it back to the design team. And
Yes,
so
sir.
I think that's a fine answer at this point. I don't want to dictate where you go with it.
Sure, but just more as you said, Palm Springs community-esque, just taking a look at what's around us and honing in on that a little bit.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I think that the overall shopping center, every single building has the same stone on the building that's used as an accent stone. So that it makes a cohesiveness that kind of ties the buildings together, even though they're individual businesses. I would really encourage you to look at using the same materials that are used in the rest of the shopping center. My main comment though is, well, two things. I would love it if the building could flip top to bottom so that the trash enclosure were down on the south end of the project and your outdoor eating was more towards the north end. It would present a much more attractive facade and introduction to the building to people on both Ramon Road and San Luis Rey Drive.
Right.
And my other question is, in the parking lot, running down the center of the lot is a single loaded row of parking spaces. I don't see any need for all of the paving that's between the western side of those parking spaces and the building. So if that driveway were able to be removed, the whole building could shift to the east somewhat so that you could get a much larger landscape buffer between your drive-up lanes and San Luis Rey. And I think that would really soften the entire project.
And again, that is something that Canes would consider. We would definitely need to work with Stan on that scheduling and such. But I don't mean to keep throwing it back to the Raising Canes design team, but that is all something that they would need to take a look at. This has gone through our founder, and like I mentioned, he's very involved, and it went through our design review committee internally. So if those are things that we need to look at, we absolutely can. However, we have spent a substantial amount of time on this one, but I do understand your thoughts.
Well, and I think one of the things that's unique here in Palm Springs is the shopping centers and developments don't have just a massive uninterrupted sea of concrete. We require landscaping and separation and trees for shade. And it's one of the things that I think makes these large shopping centers much more attractive here in Palm Springs than you'd find in most other cities. So I think if your design team can keep that as part of their direction, I think it will tie the whole project better into the existing center, because as the developer said, Stan pointed out, this is for the sorts of stores that are here, architecturally, it's a very nice center, and the landscaping is very nice. I can certainly understand and appreciate that these two smaller buildings really are softening that whole center now by getting rid of that massive Office Depot store. But I think if Raising Cane can really step up with their design approach, we might be able to make that corner of this entire center much more attractive.
Sure, definitely understood. And like I mentioned, I'll get with after this evening, and however the result is, you know, we would definitely take those comments back and discuss with Stan our approach when we do indeed resubmit.
Okay, Sean, did you have a chance to ask questions of this? You did.
I did, but I have one more.
Sure.
You know, I'll save it for our discussion.
Okay. Kristen, thank you very much. Could we have a little presentation from Starbucks? Give us your name, please, and give us a little description of the project.
Michael, you're not there?
Chair, we're waiting for Mr. Frogalella. He's the Starbucks architect. Oh, from Urban Well Architects.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. I was on mute. My name is Michael, and I'm the architect of record here for Starbucks. Mostly involved with the SoCal, Arizona, and Hawaii stores. Sorry, we're having difficulties with data for some odd reason today. Most of our phones are voice over IP, and it seems like T-Mobile and AT&T is kind of out. So this is a 2,200 square foot Starbucks location in Palm Springs. This is a standalone drive-through with a cafe type of setup here, obviously outdoor space. And we seem to have a fairly generous drive-through stack here. We try, as far as, I can start with the drive-through component a little bit, and then I'll let Stan speak a little bit to the architecture, as that was mostly developed by the landlord's architect and not by us. So as far as drive-through stack goes, we typically like to have our drive-through order point closer to the tail of the drive-through stack. And at this location, I believe we have it at car stack number 7 from the pickup window, and we have a pre-menu at car number 8. The reason we like to do that is usually the more stack we have between the order point and pickup, it essentially speeds up the the order processing and speeds up the process a bit. In this location, we think this store will be more of a neighborhood location. So we're thinking it's probably going to end up being about a 50%, 50%, so 50% going out the window and another 50% through the cafe and outdoor seating space. 2,200 square feet typically will allow for about 1,000 square feet of indoor seating. And then usually 300 to 400 square feet of outdoor seating, and obviously the drive-through component here. The architectural language that was introduced here by Stan's team seems to fit well with what Starbucks obviously stands for. We try to use raw materials, more earth tones, and more on the warm colors, as well, whether it's inside the cafe or outside. And as we get closer to developing the interior space of this cafe, we will try to introduce some of those outdoor materials that you see there into the space. So it feels it's one coherent architectural design language here. I don't really have a whole lot to say here about this. It's fairly standard size type of drive-through cafe, 2,200 square feet. So I'm open to to answer any questions that you guys may have, but I would let Stan essentially speak a little bit to the exterior architecture and how this has come to be.
Thank you, Michael. Committee, questions for the applicant? Robert?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll start. I would have the almost exact same question that I had for Kristen. In the parking lot, there's a bay of just 4 spaces in the middle that sits in a triangular island. If those 4 spaces were eliminated, the entire parking bay that's next to the store could be brought to basically be on the opposite side of the main drive. And there's an opportunity then for a lot more landscaping. You're overparked by 9 from what's required. So again, I think anything we can do to help to cut down on the amount of hard surface and give us more landscaping would be beneficial. Is there an opportunity to do that, do you think, to remove those 4 spaces and move the others down?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Stan, the developer. Okay, thank you, Stan.
Sorry, Stan Rothbard. There's clearly the opportunity. We need to make sure that there's good circulation for cars coming in and going out, but we certainly will take a look at it.
Thank you. And one
just a quick point to this, Stan. As you know, Starbucks specifically, they run on rush hours. So we do have, a couple of hours usually in the morning and a couple of hours usually in the evening that we are being overparked is usually a positive thing. As you know, the influx of customers that we will get during those hours. I would strongly recommend that we do have the extra parking stalls just to mitigate those issues, and having also the overflow sometimes in the morning hours. Having an 8-car stack sometimes is not enough, and so you would have people that would park and try to utilize the cafe space. So I would lean more towards try to maintain them, but again, I'll leave that decision to you and the board.
I would like to say one other thing. I know that with this new design, we increased the amount of landscaping dramatically. So,
and Stan, I don't know if this comment is for you or the architects, but when you come back with the actual submittal, I think it'd be really helpful if you continued the drawing of the site plan into the Taco Bell site enough that we can see how these driveways interact with each other. And the same thing on the south side, if you could continue the drawing to include at least the first group of landscape bays on the Walmart side of that road, it would help us understand how this relates to the overall site.
understood.
Any other questions of the applicant? John Walsh, do you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. Have I missed anybody? Sean?
No.
Okay, well, thank you to the applicant, and we will have a discussion now, and our goal is to just give you some direction so that when you come with your actual submittal, hopefully it can get through quickly because you've already had some advice and some direction from us. So thank you all for participating. Committee, who wants to have the first comments? Who am I looking at? I'm looking at Sean Lockyer. Sean?
Yeah. On the landscape plan for both projects, let me just get there. One second.
Sure.
So that's page 3 of the second document, LD 1.0. Something we talk about on a lot of these projects where there's a shopping center involved or a drive-through is the item of screening headlights from the traffic, even if it's perpendicular street. And so at both of the entryways to these 3 drive-throughs, really, that's kind of where the landscape appears the thinnest or most slender along the street. And so I see the challenges there with being able to plant that up with some potentially taller material. I do see a wall here delineated and don't really see a height called out, at least not on the landscape plan. It's probably on another sheet. But I wonder if there's something else that can be done about thickening up, layering that landscape in both height and depth. That's one of my items. The other one is roof. The roof height, the initial response from the woman presenting the Raising Cane's project seemed to indicate that this was kind of just a standard plan. And so I'm sure it's smaller than Office Depot was, but I can't tell because I don't see any demolition or existing elevations. So I wonder if that can decrease in height a bit. Seems like 20 feet tall. I don't quite understand it. That's it.
Okay. Tom Dosey, any comments?
No, I think your comments regarding the site plan issues would be a good focus for a design team. I agree with you. I see the opportunities there. And also by expanding the view towards the Taco Bell and further south, will give it greater context. But it's like they've got a little bit of an unusual shape site here with San Luis Rey Drive the way it is, but then everything has been set up perpendicular to like a north-south, and I think there's some flexibility in that site plan to eliminate some of the hardscape and get a larger landscape buffer around the perimeter.
Thank you. John McCoy, any comments?
Yes. Let's see. So I appreciate what Stan was saying, that the project has gotten accolades, and I think it's a good looking project. The existing Office Depot building, even though you're looking at the back side of it and not the best part at that corner, for that intersection, that is currently the most attractive corner. I understand the need to, move on and change, but I think it's very important that that corner keep a softness and keep a nice look. The perimeter wall that we're unable to look at today is clearly going to be very important. Keeping a cohesive look with the rest of the project of that wall is important. There is some elements of that existing now. The definitely screening of all of this drive-through traffic is very important, and it'll also be happening at night to making sure that there's enough height that as headlights are heading back into other traffic, they're not blinding drivers as they're coming through on adjacent roads. Some of what we're presented with today, I feel, is a little heavy-handed corporate feel. It's kind of everything that they're throwing at us, every sign, every light, every piece of corporate identity that they have. Not every city accepts every bit of corporate identity that is presented to them. Can we, as we develop this project, can we have a little respect for the community and maybe back it off, ease it up? As I said, it's an attractive corner now. Can we tie it in with the existing project rather than feeling that these two buildings have been dropped in on the project? Specifically the Starbucks drive-through, looking at the photometric plan, is highly overlit, and 25-foot high poles with unshielded LED lighting is not a nice thing to present to the community. It's a busy road, lots of people drive by there. That could be much better addressed. In the elevations, it doesn't show it, but in the renderings, it shows drive-through standing proud of the overhang. So you've got the letters up above. 50% of your business is drive-through. People know that it's a drive-through there. Does it really need to be saying drive-through to every person that drives by? Can you just those kind of things back off a bit? What else? The project, it needs to evolve and develop, and I appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate that there is more landscaping. Let's I think lightening up a bit of that corporate heavy-handedness would be a nice thing to do for the community. Thanks.
Good comments, John. Thank you. Dan, do you have some comments for us?
We kind of talked about the red brick on Raising Cane's, about it doesn't really tie into the desert or pretty much the complex, but we didn't talk about the tile on Starbucks. It's kind of the same thing, really. I don't see that tile element anywhere else in the complex. So I just think that maybe something that is already existing in the complex, if we're trying to make it cohesive, that should maybe something they should look at as well.
Thank you. John Walsh?
I'm sort of struck by it's a wonderful design problem, just the site plan, the challenge. And I think in a case like this, site plan and vehicular traffic is everything. You've got to get it right. And if you don't, it's just not going to work. In looking at, the potential to sort of flip it and to put the outdoor eating on the north side as opposed to the south side, I think it's the type of thing you almost need to really see and explore. I hope it's being done somewhere where there are in-depth alternative site plans being put on the wall and discussed and critiqued, because I think until you really go through that exercise, it will not be quickly apparent what the best design solution would be. Let's see what else. Okay, just, I go through the elevations, and I think it's kind of a classic difficult battle between the need for a client to do marketing through their architecture, and that many times runs counter to what looks best and what fits in with a particular community. And all of our comments here, I would say whoever said it, because I thought it was very good about the Palm Springs centric, the potential for a Palm Springs centric aesthetic of some sort. There is an ethos here. There is an opportunity in terms of the need for shading, for overhangs, horizontal proportions, that if they pick up and run with, I think it could be a remarkable architectural solution that they come up with. Right now, as I kind of go through this, there seems to be a lack of cohesion, just elevation to elevation, the two buildings, both buildings in Palm Springs. I think that there are things both geometrically and in terms of the materials that could be much more studied, and I'm sure will be. I appreciate seeing it in its semi-infancy here. This is a great opportunity. That's it.
Thank you, John. Robert?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of in agreement with everything that's been said. I think there are, I think the site plans for both restaurants are not resolved completely. I mean, I almost would like to see what it would be like to flip things and, mix it up a little bit, because it's not Raising Cane isn't taking advantage of the views for their outdoor dining. It's all stacking for the drive-through as you see the corner, and that's very different than the sort of feel of the center currently. I know my own personal experience with Starbucks, they talked about having their order thing further away from the window, but I've been in many Starbucks here where you're stacked well into the parking lot because people are trying to place their order, and it doesn't work. And I think there's way too much asphalt. To Tom Jakeway's comment, I think there's way too much asphalt. So I think there's huge issues with the site plans that I would like to see looked at and presented differently. The buildings, I think also, I think there should be some commonality between these two new buildings and the existing buildings on the project. And I think they should be appropriate for the desert. You know, yeah, so that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody on the committee, or does anybody have any additional thoughts? Okay, well, I want to thank the applicant and planning staff for giving us this opportunity to kind of give some input in the infancy when changes can still be made. Sometimes we get plans and it's kind of handed to us like, well, it's too late for us to change anything right now. So this might be able to give the developer and the architects a chance to see where we're thinking.
Thank you, Chair.
I just wanted to thank you. Your time is very valuable.
Sorry, Kristen, lean in again. We can't hear you.
It's because I'm in Texas. I'm so far away.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to super quick, and I did not intend to interrupt. I just wanted to thank you again. Your time is valuable, and the work you do is wonderful, and I appreciate all of your heart that's in your community. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is the committee able to go through what's probably a pretty quick item number 5, or do we need to take a little break?
Able.
Let's go.
Motor on.
Let's
Yeah.
move on to item number
Move
5.
on. Yeah.
Ashes First LLC for a minor architectural application to modify an existing facade for a proposed cannabis dispensary located at 757 South Williams Road. Staff report, please.
Okay, do you see
We see it.
black frame around my screen?
Yes.
See if I can fix this. Is that better?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so what you have before you is a minor architectural application for a repaint of a storefront, new signage, and the window treatment for a dispensary and lounge. The project, because it is a cannabis dispensary and lounge, requires AAC review for both the signage as well as the exterior improvements. And ultimately, the City Council has to approve any exterior improvements for a dispensary lounge facility. So that's why this is before you. The site is 757 South Williams Road. It is a multi-tenant light industrial building. Generally, it has offices. There is another another cannabis manufacturer within the center, and there's various offices. Some of the spaces are actually vacant as well. So the space that's before you right now is this, the one that's highlighted in yellow. It is the building that, or the portion of the building that fronts Williams Road. And so, as I said, it is going to be a dispensary, which you see on the right side of the screen or the north side of the building, and a lounge. So the lobby is the main entry, off the main entry, the center here on the bottom. So this is an existing photograph of what you see from Williams Road. Right now, it is currently 2 tenant spaces. It was a massage spa facility on the north side of the building, and the south side is currently vacant. So they are combining both of these tenant spaces into one unit. And what their plan is they intend to repaint the facade to match the existing colors, so really to refresh the existing paint. They also intend to install a non-illuminated sign that is 3 feet by 11 feet. And it, as you see here, it is proposed in a neon green background. And so here's an additional detail of that sign proposed on the elevation. Staff is recommending that the AAC approve the sign, subject to revising the neon background to a more neutral color, so it is not a bright neon color that detracts from the building architecture. So that would be reviewed by the Director of Planning if you agree with staff's recommendation today. And then also that you recommend approval of the exterior improvements. So basically repaint, a refresh of the building paint. And then they are installing window treatment. Translucent film would be applied to the storefront to block visibility of the lounge from the exterior. So that would be in compliance with the city's zoning code and municipal code. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is also here.
Thank you, David. A comment, they're repainting only this one building in the overall center. So the colors basically are a given because they have to match what the rest of the center that's not being repainted. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what about landscaping? Are we going to see that in some time? Is there a way we can have improvements to the landscaping?
There are no changes proposed to the landscape. So they would continue what's currently there. And I think it's really just, there's some sod and then the existing trees, and you see there's some hedges as well.
When the landscaping on a project becomes so, I don't know what the word is, dilapidated, are there methods for the city, for the planning department or code enforcement or somebody to come in and say, all that barren earth around those olive trees needs to be planted or rockscaped or something?
Yeah, it would be a code enforcement issue.
Okay. Questions of staff by the committee? Robert?
Question. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to drive by the building. Can you tell me, David, what the materials of the canopy is, and also the wall below the canopy to the right of the entry doors? Is it wood?
Yeah, it's a wood material.
Both of them are. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions of staff?
I have one. Hey, David, is there any other office space in this complex with a sign attached to the building like this?
No, my understanding is it's mostly window signage, and then you'll see it's kind of off to the right here. There's a freestanding monument sign that has some of the business names on it.
So is there a sign package for this particular complex?
There is not. The only sign that we've seen in the files and archives are this monument sign.
Thank you.
I have a question, David. Is the proposed information on the sign, the CBD 420, is that the proposed lettering?
From my talks with the applicant, they've said that the final actual detail is not yet known. So they're working on that now. But generally, this would be the basic kind of size and location of it. And then again, the color is proposed to be neon. Staff is recommending a different alternative. So they haven't finalized the sign to answer your question yet. And hope maybe the applicant can provide some additional information on that.
Thank you.
David, you mentioned they're going to be putting a translucent film on the windows. Could the signage be incorporated into the window coverings so that it isn't placed on the building like this?
You can, yeah, I mean, you can make that recommendation that it should be something that is installed on the windows as opposed to the facade.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Did we have one? Dan?
How is this different from the Oasis? If the Oasis had a sign out front and not allowed one on the building, how is this one allowed on the building? How the two projects differ?
The difference is the Oasis tenant or the Oasis property is a standalone tenant. This is a multi-tenant property. So generally we like to see a consistency amongst the signage. So as I said, the only signs that we have on our records is the monument sign. But this would be the only tenant that actually fronts Williams Road. All of the other tenants are really tucked behind this business.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know if the owner of the building has approved mounting signage on the exterior of the structure?
The owner has authorized the applicant to proceed with this application, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see the applicant is here. Could you give us your name and any description of what you're planning to do?
Hi, my name is Brian, and we are developing a 2,400 square feet of a minor tenant improvement. And just like David mentioned a while ago, these are two units that we are planning to combine. And it is a dispensary lounge. And we are not planning to do any exterior changes on the existing building, but we do intend to repaint the exterior walls and wood cladding with its original colors, and to apply a 5-foot high translucent film on the storefront of the building, and to install 3 foot wide by 11 feet signage on the front. We do understand that the color is a bit vibrant, and we are planning to do the recommendation of David to change the color to a more subtle and more befitting colors that will blend in with the project, with the building.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of the applicant?
I have a question. It looks like on the sign detail, it's proposed the backing is a 5/8 inch plywood. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So I kind of want to follow up on Mr. Dosey's question. It's just a sheet of plywood that's painted and attached to the building.
I would like to state that the plywood would be treated and to prevent rotting from exposure from the elements. So yeah, after that, the sign would be applied.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Committee discussions? John McQueen? Oh, we got Tom Dosey.
Yeah, I mean, I think the building itself has a nice composition, and the painting will be an improvement. But I think there's an opportunity here to better integrate the sign. I think if that one shrub or vine is removed from that facade of the building there, and the planters enhanced with some landscape, would be of great help. But I think the sign could be better integrated into an architectural component of the building.
Thank you. John McCoy?
Yeah, in looking around the neighborhood, it's not unusual to have signage on the buildings, but I think integration into the architecture would go a long way, perhaps lowering it. In the photo, it looks like there's 3 bands of wood in that overhang, at least centering it on that overhang would be a good start. And I'd be happy to hear other suggestions.
Sean Lockyer?
I don't have any suggestions. Agree with the comments.
John Walsh?
I have concerns about the quality and the material of the sign itself, as well as its placement. It is just exposed plywood, I take it.
That's what they said.
Robert?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the first thing I reacted to when I saw this was the location of the sign. It looked like an emergency address or identification, stuck on the top corner for the fire department. it just does not tie in with what's going on with the building. I think it needs to be relocated, integrated either into the canopy or maybe into the wood panel to the right of the doors, something, but it just, and again, I agree about the plywood. I mean, I think this is down and dirty and cheap. So I think they can do better.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
My concerns are similar. David mentioned that the sign hasn't been finalized yet either as far as font or script. So I'm a little concerned what we're actually would be approving. And it doesn't seem like the plywood would hold up to the sun or the elements, and that maybe something under that eave that Robert just mentioned, kind of north of the glass, would be a better location for a sign. And it'd be a little bit more protected too. And I'd like to see something a little more advanced, I guess. It doesn't seem sophisticated at all.
Well, I would echo those comments, and I would really play up Robert's comment that the more appropriate location for the sign is probably on that wood-clad wall. The sign could then work within the modules of the horizontal pieces in that wood wall. And the comment that it looks like an emergency sign for the fire department is totally correct. So I think relocate the sign and use some different colors, and they don't need an 11-foot long sign to have 6-foot long worth of letters. You know, I think the proportions can be revised, and the location revised, and the color revised. I think the colors that they're proposing to paint the building are a given. They're matching the existing, and I would ask that the translucent film that they're putting on the windows be continuous floor to ceiling. I think it would look odd if it stops at 5 feet, unless there's some technical reason it needs to, but I can't imagine that. Do we have a motion?
I move to continue.
Second.
Or do we want to let staff work with them? I don't know.
Well, I think our comments are pretty definite. So I would be comfortable approving with staff review of the comments that we've made regarding location, size, and color.
Okay. All right, so I move that it be approved with the comments we made about the location of the sign, the graphics, the color, and the material.
I'll second that.
A second, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes the agenda. Do committee members have any comments about any particular items? How about staff member comments? Anything, David?
No, just thank you for bearing with us today as we work through some of these technical challenges and getting through the agenda.
I think you made it work, and so we will adjourn until July 20th for our next Zoom. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.